Political Thinking Nerd podcast. The United States of America and the philosophy, the principles, and the spirit as a constitutional republic. Written in ratification of the U.S. Constitution, with influences from the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. This is your host, Random Nerd, on the Political Thinking Nerd podcast. Episode 1, The Spirit of the U.S. Constitution, a history lesson on its foundations. Howdy, howdy, listeners. This is your host, Random Nerd, on the Political Thinking Nerd podcast. In this Political Thinking Nerd series, we're exploring why Americans don't trust their government anymore, starting with the heart of our nation, the U.S. Constitution. What makes it special? It's not just a rule book, it's a vision built on principles like liberty and limited power, designed to keep America free and strong. Today, we'll take a history lesson, why the founders wrote it this way, how their first try, the Articles of Confederation, failed, and how fiery debates in the Federalist Papers shaped a system that still checks abuses today. For example, like 325 lawsuits against Trump's executive orders. Get ready to see why the Constitution's spirit keeps us thriving. Let's nerd out. This series is about you, everyday people dealing with rising costs, community divides, and a government that sometimes feels out of touch. As a political activist, I'm here to call out abuse, like the $247 billion in wasted federal funds, and show how the Constitution fights back. Today's episode is your foundation. We'll explore the big ideas behind the Constitution, why our first government flopped, and how the founders' debates made it work. We'll meet young visionaries like Alexander Hamilton, barely 30, dreaming of a free nation. And we'll set up next episode on how checks and balances and compromise make the system tick, even under max pressure of today. Let's dig into why the Constitution was built to serve you. So, let's start with the big picture. What's the spirit of the Constitution, and why does it matter? The philosophical principles of the Constitution. All right, nerds, imagine you're building a house, not just any house, but one meant to last centuries, protect your family, and give you freedom to live your way. That's what the Constitution is. A blueprint for a nation built on big ideas, or what I'm calling philosophical principles. These aren't just rules or laws written by stuffy lawyers. They're timeless ideals about how a government should work for its people. Let's break down 3 core principles that define the Constitution's spirit: liberty, limited government, and popular sovereignty. First, liberty. This is about your freedom to speak your mind, practice your faith, or chase your dreams without a king or government bossing you around. The founders, fresh off fighting the British in the 1770s, knew what it was like to live under a ruler who didn't care about their rights. They wanted a system where you, the individual, have the power to shape your life. Think of liberty as the open space in that house. Room to be you without walls closing in. Next, limited government. The founders didn't trust power-hungry leaders. They saw how kings and governors could abuse authority. So they designed a government with strict boundaries, only doing what's absolutely necessary, like defending the nation or regulating trade. Everything else, That's for states or people to handle. It's like putting strong walls in the house to keep the government from sprawling into every corner of your life. Finally, popular sovereignty. This is the big one. The government's power comes from you, the people, not some elite or bureaucrat. The Constitution was written to make sure leaders answer to us through elections, protests, or even lawsuits. Picture it as the foundation of the house, built on the will of the people, not some distant ruler. Why do these principles matter? Because in 1787, when the Constitution was written, most of the world was ruled by kings or emperors who didn't care about freedom. The founders were saying, not here. They wanted a nation where you're in charge, not some out-of-touch official, or as we might say today, a quote-unquote deep state insider. These ideas were radical. A government built for liberty, kept in check, empowered by its citizens. Now, let's fast forward to today. These principles are why the Constitution still matters, especially when trusting government is shaky. You've seen it. $247 billion in wasted federal funds. Policies like post-9/11 surveillance that feel like overreach, or bureaucrats who seem to run the show. I'm an activist who calls that out. Government should serve you, not itself. The Constitution's spirit fights that abuse. Take 2025. President Trump issued 196 executive orders, but over 325 lawsuits, including ones blocking his birthright citizenship order, show the system pushing back. That's the Constitution principles at work, keeping America strong as a superpower while protecting your freedom. But how did we get to this Constitution? It wasn't the first try. To understand why it's written this way, we need to look at what came before. A failed experiment called the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation, creation and failure. All right, let's take a step back to the 1770s. America's fighting for independence from Britain, and the 13 states need a way to work together. Enter the Articles of Confederation, our first stab at a national government. Think of it like a group chat for the states. They wanted to team up to beat the British, but keep their own power. Let's unpack why they created it, how it worked, and why it crashed and burned, setting the stage for the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation was adopted in 1777 and ratified in 1781, right in the middle of the Revolutionary War. Why? The states needed to coordinate, raise armies, sign treaties, borrow money to fight. But they just ditched the king, so they were paranoid about central power. They created a loose alliance where each state stayed mostly independent, like 13 mini countries. The Articles of Confederation set up a single Congress, with each state getting one vote, no matter its size. Congress could declare war or make treaties. But here's the catch. It had no president, no courts, and no power to tax or regulate trade. It was like a team leader with no authority, begging states for cash or troops. So why did it fail? By 1786, the Articles of Confederation was falling apart, and it comes down to three big problems. First, no taxing power. Congress racked up $40 million, in war debt, but couldn't force states to pay. Some states just said, nah, leaving the nation broke. Imagine trying to run a business where your partners won't chip in. That's the Articles of Confederation. Second, no central authority. Without an executive or courts, Congress couldn't enforce anything. States even started fighting each other, like New York slapping taxes on New Jersey goods, sparking trade wars. Then came Shays' Rebellion in 1786. Massachusetts farmers, crushed by taxes and debt, stormed courthouses. Congress couldn't send troops or raise money to stop it. It was chaos, showing the government was too weak to keep order. And third, lack of unity. The one state, one rule vote ignored population differences. Big states like Virginia, with tons of people, got the same say as tiny Delaware. This frustrated bigger states who fell short-changed. The Articles of Confederation leaned so hard into state power that it couldn't hold the nation together. It was like trying to run a family where everyone does whatever they want. No one's on the same page. Philosophically, the Articles of Confederation failed because it went too far towards state freedom, neglecting the need for a balanced national system to protect liberty and sovereignty. By 1787, the states were acting like separate nations, threatening America's survival as a global player. The lesson? You need a government strong enough to unite, but limited enough to avoid tyranny. That's what drove the founders to write the Constitution, fixing the Articles of Confederation's flaws with a better system. One we'll dive into next episode with checks and balances and compromise. The Federalist and Anti-Federalist Papers, shaping the Constitution. So, the Articles of Confederation tanked. By 1787, the founders knew they needed a new plan, but convincing 13 states to agree on a new government, that was a tough sell. Enter the Federalist Papers and Anti-Federalist Papers. Think of them as a public debate, like a 1780s version of a social media showdown, arguing over what America's future should be. These essays shaped the Constitution structure, making sure it reflected those big principles of liberty and limited government. Let's break it down. The Federalist Papers were 85 essays written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay under the pen name Publius from 1787 to 1788. Their goal? Convince states to ratify the new Constitution. They argued it was the best way to balance strength and freedom. In Federalist number 10, Madison tackled a big worry: factions, or groups fighting for their own interests, like greedy merchants or angry mobs. He said a republic with elected representatives could control these factions better than a pure democracy where everyone votes on everything. In number 51, he laid out the genius of separating powers. Quote, ambition must counteract ambition, unquote. By splitting government into three branches, Congress, President, courts, each keeps the others in check, protecting liberty. These essays were like a sales pitch, showing states the Constitution would make America strong without turning into a new British Empire. On the other side, the Anti-Federalist Papers written by folks like Brutus and Cato, were the skeptics. They worried that the Constitution gave too much power to the federal government, risking the tyranny they just fought a war to escape. They wanted guarantees, like a Bill of Rights, to protect free speech, religion, and guns, and stronger state powers to keep the feds in check. Their push wasn't just whining. It forced real changes. The Bill of Rights, added in 1791, was a direct result of their demands, as was the 10th Amendment, which says any powers not given to the federal government belong to states or people. Belong to the states or people. Together, these debates shaped the Constitution structure. The Federalists gave us a strong framework: two houses of Congress, a president, courts, to unite the nation. The Anti-Federalists ensured it didn't go too far, adding protections for you and me. It's why the Constitution balances national power with local freedom, just like you care about when you talk about small government. Today, these ideas still matter. The Federalist system lets courts block things like Trump's executive orders. 5% of his 196 orders got stopped in 2025 so far for going too far. The anti-federalist warnings, they're alive in our distrust of big government, like when we question bureaucrats or the quote-unquote deep state. Their debates keep the Constitution working, protecting the people. The founders' mentality, ages, and ideals. Now, let's meet the people behind this document. The founding fathers. Who were they? And why did they write the Constitution this way? Picture a hot summer in 1787, Philadelphia. 55 men crammed into a room, arguing over America's future. They weren't just old guys in wigs. They were rebels, thinkers, and regular folks who fought for freedom and wanted a nation that lasted. Their mentality came from living through tyranny. They'd battle Britain over taxes and laws they had no say in, like being forced to pay for tea you didn't order. They were inspired by big thinkers, John Locke, who said government exists to protect your rights, and Montesquieu, who pushed for splitting power to avoid kings. The founders wanted a government that served the people, not ruled them. But they also seen chaos under the Articles of Confederation, states fighting, debts piling up. James Madison, the, quote, father of the Constitution, unquote, wrote in Federalist number 45 that the federal government should handle national stuff like defense, while states keep local control. That balance was their obsession, strong enough to survive, limited enough to stay free. Their ages. These guys were young, full of fire. Alexander Hamilton was only 32, dreaming of a bold America. Madison was 36, a nerdy genius mapping out the system. John Jay was 42, pushing diplomacy. Thomas Jefferson, 44, was penning ideas of liberty from afar. Even George Washington, the elder at 55, brought gravitas but backed the young guns. Their youth meant they weren't stuck in old ways. They took risks to build something new, but their mix of ages brought wisdom to avoid mistakes like the Articles of Confederation. Their ideals: liberty, freedom from oppression, self-governance, the people, not elites, called the shots, limited government, no overreach, whether from a king or a bureaucrat. They envisioned a nation where you could thrive without someone breathing down your neck. That's why the Constitution splits power, gives states a big role, and protects your rights. Why was the Constitution written this way? The founders saw what happened when power went unchecked, British tyranny, and when it was too weak, Articles of Confederation chaos. They crafted a system to protect liberty and let the people govern, balancing national strength with local freedom. It's why we have two houses of Congress, a president who can't act like a king, and courts to keep everyone honest. Today, that vision holds up. When I see 325 lawsuits checking Trump's executive orders or states pushing back on federal rules, I'm reminded of the founders' genius. It's why I'm an activist, calling out waste, like $247 billion in bad spending, and demanding a government that serves you. Next episode, we'll dive into how checks and balances and compromise make the system work even under pressure. All right, nerds, let's wrap this up. Today, we took a history lesson on Constitution's spirit. Big ideas like liberty, limited government, and popular sovereignty. These aren't just words. They're why the Constitution was written to empower you, not elites or bureaucrats. The Articles of Confederation, a failed first try, too weak to hold us together, teaching the founders to balance strength and freedom. The Federalist Papers sold that vision, while anti-federalists made sure your rights were protected. And the founders, young rebels like Hamilton at 32, with wise leaders like Washington at 55, built a system to keep America free and strong, learning from tyranny and chaos. This matters for us today. When trust in government's low at 70% of Americans don't trust it, the Constitution's spirit fights back. It's why courts can stop a president's overreach, or why states can sue over policies affecting your community. As an activist, I'm here to say this system works, but we've got to hold it accountable. Whether it's liberal policies bloating government or questionable tactics like donor deals. Next episode, in episode 2, we'll dive into Constitution 2 big pillars, checks and balances and compromise, showing how they keep the system running, even under max pressure. If you found value in this Political Thinking Nerd series and our dive into the Constitution's fight against government abuse, help keep the series going. Subscribe to my Political Thinking Nerd membership on my Beacon store for exclusive Q&A episodes answering your critical questions about the Constitution principles and modern U.S. politics and policies. For example, how does it check today's policies? This would be me diving in and answering your questions as my listeners. Or, if you prefer to support this passion project with a one-time donation, please visit my Ko-Fi account in my Beacon store as well. Every dollar helps keep Political Thinking Nerd free. I'm a single voice sharing history to build an informed society, and your generous support makes it possible. Share your critical questions on X with me at Random Nerd. This is your host, Random Nerd. Until next time, have fun.